Our community conversation brought to you by Floyd County Medical Center, fcmc.us.com. Joining me here on with us via StreamYard, I have drummer of the Pork Tornadoes and host of the Confused Breakfast. Excited to have Mike Schulte with me. Mike, thanks for joining me this morning.
Happy to be here.
Absolutely. And you know what? Huge fan of the podcast here. We'll kind of dive into it here in a little bit, but let's, of course, talk about your band, the Pork Tornadoes. And remember, first time I've seen you guys a couple of years ago at the Surf Ballroom in Clear Lake, and was kind of curious of, what the guys were about. And go ahead and you can tell us, what we could expect for tonight at New Hampton Heartland Days. What is the Pork Tornadoes?
Yeah, it's a very unfortunate thing that happened to us is we named our band the Pork Tornadoes 16 years ago, and then we're still playing music. So we have to have that battle every day where people are like, what is the Pork Tornadoes? It does not describe us or what we sound like at all, but it is memorable, so we can at least deal with that. The Pork Tornadoes are Iowa's most popular party band, and some would say the Midwest. We do everything. We don't focus on one decade or one artist or one genre. We truly bring something for everyone, which is why it's so much fun in town festivals, because we play 80s through today. We play country, rock, pop, hip hop. We say it's like the Iowa weather. If you don't like it, just wait a little bit longer. You'll hear something you like. And I think that's why it's going to be so fun tonight, is because there's really, truly going to be something for everybody.
Absolutely. And I've kind of breezed through your set list of, some of the stuff that you guys cover. It's sort of the modern bands in pop music, and even, definitely the 90s, the stuff that, you and I kind of grew up with through the decades. NSYNC, Backstreet Boys. I mean, even play a little bit of Morgan Wallen I saw on the set list here, and Shania Twain. So we're kind of in good company here in these parts.
Yeah. That's the whole idea, is that there's such great music written out there, and it doesn't matter the decade, it doesn't matter the genre. There's just good music that everybody knows and loves, and you're out, you're enjoying the summer night, you hear a band playing a song you love, you can't help but sing along, and that's what we love doing.
And I like that because, you're a very passionate guy when it comes to music, especially with, being in a band like that. And I've heard you through, many of your podcasts with fellow members of bands around the area, especially Hairball, who is, of course, a very, very important part of Iowa, too, especially, with their Mardi Gras celebrations up in Clear Lake and stuff like that, that you guys share a kinship of which, bringing music to the people without, the whole, you have to spend like $200, $300 to go see a quality show. You guys bring something that is unique to the area, and it's fun. It's all about having a fun time and a good party with you guys when you come to town.
That's really what it's about. And it's true that ever since, like 2020, there's always been the increased movement of supporting local, and for us to be a local Iowa band, to be playing at local Iowa festivals that all these great people and are putting on, the committee members, the local sponsors, everything that's going into creating something fun for our community. It's just so important that you choose to go to these things, and that you choose to support local bands like us and local festivals like Heartland Days. It's very important to us to provide quality entertainment that does not cost as much as it would be to drive to Chicago to see Morgan Wallen for $500. It's like, we'll just play it in your backyard. You'll enjoy it.
That's right. Mike Schulte joining me here from Pork Tornadoes here on 95.1 The Bull. And of course, you guys will be performing tonight at Heartland Days. I believe 6:30's opening act, Bruce Day, Mike Stable. You guys will be going on stage about 8 o'clock. That right?
Yep. I think you probably might know a little better than I do. I'll be there. We'll just find out what time we go on stage.
I'll be seeing you setting up your drum kit and all that stuff. So
yeah.
Definitely. And of course, I know Liz, our chamber director, wanted me to kind of put the bug in your ear a little bit. If you can maybe slip in some time and do those mechanical hog rides that I hear that's going to be happening there at the Michael Park.
As long as I don't break my arms or anything like that, because I need them for the rest of the summer, I'm fine. Let's do it.
Yes, because I know not only you are like a full-time band member, content creator, you're also a full-time dad as well. On top of all of that. And I did hear that you have another bundle of joy will be on the way.
Yeah, I got a second second child. It'll be 2 girls, arrives here maybe in about 6 weeks, something like that. So life is insane right now, but that's kind of how I've always loved it. I thrive on chaos, so I'm about to have even more in my life here.
That's great. That's great. Mike Schulte joining us here again on the Morning Roundup 95.1 The Bull. Let's dive into something that, I'm a huge fan of, and I've been listening to you guys since all of a sudden it came across my For You page on TikTok. Let's kind of dive into your podcast called Confused Breakfast. Now, how did this all come about?
It was wild. I'm an active guy. I like to be creative. I like to be involved in the creation of things. And when 2020 hit, Pork Tornadoes canceled like 40 gigs, and that was my creative outlet. So I needed something, and I was just really into podcasts, and I thought, man, what if I could come up with an idea that's more of a global idea that you don't have to be from Iowa to listen to and appreciate. And my love for classic movies has always been there, 80s, 90s, early 2000s movies. So I called up two of my buddies, AJ and Sean, and I said, how would you feel about doing a movie podcast? And essentially we would pick a classic movie. We would talk about it nostalgically and then talk about it more with a modern eye to see if it actually holds up. And sometimes it's much better than you remember it. And sometimes it is much worse than you remember it, if you're being honest about it. And the thing went nuts. It after a couple months, we had some viral videos take off on TikTok. Comedian Bert Kreischer brought us out to LA to be on his podcast. We were the only people inside of Mikey's house from the Goonies in the last 10 years. We made a video about that. It's just, we just interviewed comedian Dusty Slay. If you know him from Netflix, our episode with him drops on Monday. So it's been absolutely so much fun and so wild to see how it's affected people, how much they like it.
Definitely, Mike. And I know that with that being pushed into overdrive, it's not like, there's several movie podcasts. I know I heard your Birdcast with Bert when it initially came out about how saturated the market is when it comes to podcasts, but you guys offer something quite different from all the ones that we are used to hearing about. Kind of diving into some of those features there. And one of my favorite things that you do, and these are the kind of things that I think about, while watching a movie, or maybe I'm getting ready to go to bed or something. It's like those little ideas that pop in your head about a certain movie. I'm referring to your fan theory.
Yep.
And your fan theory kind of almost goes into the whole multiverse thing like Marvel does. And I know recently on the Men in Black podcast, you've had one of those couple things about Agent Zed, who would be neuralized and eventually be rechristened as Patches O'Houlihan from Dodgeball. And it's like, I can believe that.
Well, it's just so fun. Like, you don't take it seriously. Movies are for entertainment, and if a movie did its job, if it makes you think a little bit beyond just the screen ending and going, oh, that's a great movie. So if you can just tie in different movies together in a universe, I find it to be hilarious. And we're not saying that it's canon. That is the number one thing I'm trying to say. Like, these are just fun conversations, but I'll tell you what, it works the internet into a frenzy because some people get really mad when you do these things.
Well, yeah, I mean, kind of, a prime example is a lot of the movies that you and I grew up with through the 90s. I mean, watching like, a classic family movie like Mrs. Doubtfire, for example, when you look at Robin Williams' character, I mean, the guy is probably one of my patron saints there for comedy.
Yeah, 100%.
Growing up. But when you look at it from a more serious perspective, like as a parent, for example, you realize that his character Daniel is not really a very good character when it comes to his marriage life.
This would be top story throughout the world, and it would be unbelievable how much people would hate this guy. If you heard modern day, you heard that a man got divorced from his wife and had zero custody of his kids, and then dressed up like an old woman and became the nanny without their permission and lived in their house for years. That would be like, this man would be in jail. But in the movie, we're like, oh, Robin Williams, we love you so much.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Some of the other things that you do, and this is another fun thing that, even we think about when we're watching movies, is the punchable face. And I know you have quite a few in your list. What is the one that's kind of like more like the top three that you can think of off the top of your head from a certain movie? You guys have done almost about 150 movies going on right now.
We're like 230 episodes, and I think we're at 160 actually full-length movie reviews. So we're getting up there. And actually, I'll tell you what, it starts to blend together. Like it's been almost 4 years. It's hard sometimes to think back. When we started re-releasing some old episodes just because it's fun to re-listen to that. But man, I'll tell you what, just being funny, I think the one we always come back to is Charlie from the Santa Claus, the little kid. I think he's our most punchable face of all time because he's just so whiny. Again, yeah, like well, watching that movie back was pretty funny because we just did not like Charlie at all.
Oh, and from a parent's perspective, you could see why, but you're kind of just like, you got to work with us, Charlie.
It's discipline in his life. Nobody's been disciplined than this kid.
But of course, with all the favorite moments you've guys done, you, AJ Venz, and Sean Pryor, what was probably like the top prime moment thus far in the Confused Breakfast podcast that's like really like kind of set you guys on the path that's like, man, I think we are doing great. We just going to keep on pushing through here.
It's a few things for me. Like, I mean, there has been some episodes that I've listened back to that I've said, this is just, how are we going to do better than that? I think some of them are like, we have a lot of fun. We laugh, we joke, we tell a lot of jokes. It's comedy based, but there's some moments where it has gotten really serious, like Breakfast Club and Dazed and Confused, where there's been some moments where it's like been like kind of emotional, like talking about these old movies. And that's where I feel like we really hit our stride. But also, I mean, I'll look back on my deathbed someday about that trip to LA and having a famous comedian decide to take a chance on us. And we sat in his studio for 3 hours and 45 minutes and chatted movies with one of the most famous people on the planet. And you can watch it on YouTube. It's incredible. I think that was a moment where people started going, whoa, what are these guys doing? Like, I can't believe they went from this little podcast to that. So that was that, and being inside the Goonies house was a childhood dream come true for me.
And definitely you can check that out again on YouTube. Mike Schulte joining me here from Pork Tornadoes and Confused Breakfast podcast on 95.1 The Bull. And it's not just limited to movies too with Confused Breakfast. You guys do what's called mini bites. And thanks to, with Patreon support and stuff, you guys have been able to do more episodes, whether it be on that. You also have the brunch thing you do, I think, on Mondays. Is that right? Mm-hmm. And the mini bites, I mean, it's all about pop culture, basically, stuff that we grew up with as kids, the many video game systems. I mean, I love that you did, one on the Nintendo 64 and the PlayStation, the PlayStation 1, as we're referring to, not the modern day ones. And just, kind of things that we grew up as kids, prime example, probably the big one is like when you were sick at home, what do? You got your can of 7-Up or Sprite and you watch Price is Right. That was a big core memory when you brought that up.
Completely, man. It's just fun. You got to talk about pop culture when you're talking about anything related to childhood and nostalgia. And that includes TV shows, comic books, video games, movies, you name it. We even do album reviews, kind of like old albums from the 90s. It's just, we just like talking. People like hearing us, and it's pretty awesome. And I think it's just important to note that the thing I've always been passionate about, whether it's the Pork Tornadoes or Confused Breakfast, is trying to prove to people that you don't have to move away from Iowa to do big things, And so having people support the Pork Tornadoes, coming out to our shows, having people listen to our podcast instead of checking out X famous person's podcast who has 80 million downloads, listen to local podcasts. Like, you'd be surprised at how much you'll probably enjoy the Confused Breakfast, but also don't listen to it with kids. It is very explicit sometimes. You'll enjoy it, I promise.
For what it's worth, I love the local tie-ins, when you mention Casey's versus Quick Star and even the local Hy-Vee store, because when people outside of Iowa going, well, what are you talking about? Guys in Iowa is like, yep, he's right on the money right there.
Yeah, we're like, Iowa's like our 30th most popular state in the United States. So Iowa in general kind of doesn't really know about the Confused Breakfast. So it would make my heart happy if Iowa kept moving up the list of listeners. You know what I mean?
That's why I figured reach out to you, because the more people here in Iowa listen to it, especially north and northeastern Iowa, maybe we could get a Confused Breakfast in these parts, maybe in Mason City for that matter, or maybe even in Clear Lake, do a show over there, do a podcast. I mean, that would be wild.
Do a live podcast at the Surf Ballroom. That's what I would love. Right now, I don't think we could sell that many tickets. And we're going to go to we're gonna go to Chicago here in a couple of months, and we're gonna sell out this downtown venue. But in Iowa, people are like, huh? Confused Breakfast? What a dumb name.
Yeah, and you know what? For people who haven't heard yet, your episode on Air Force One in Cedar Rapids was a blast to listen to, and even the follow-up when you did the
The
Harrison
audience.
Ford rankings on all his different movies. That was wild.
Yeah, it's a blast, and I hope people will check it out. I hope that's the beauty of modern technologies. Right now, if you're listening to this and you've never heard the Pork Tornadoes, you can literally go on Spotify, Apple Music, YouTube, and you can immediately see what we're all about. And the same thing with Confused Breakfast. If you want to hit any podcast platform, or even on YouTube, if you want to see what we look like, you can judge right then and there to see if something's good. So that's what you should do. You should go check it out.
Absolutely, and make sure to check out the Pork Tornadoes tonight at Michelson Park in New Hampton for Heartland Days. You guys will be hitting the stage at 8 o'clock, and stick around afterwards for the fireworks at dusk. Mike, any final words before we part ways this morning?
No, that's it, man. It was great being here. Always great chatting about this kind of stuff. I could talk forever. Obviously, I release 3 hours worth of podcast content every week. I can keep talking if you want me to.
You know what? Somewhere down the line, we'll definitely have to have another chat next time you're around these parts, because just picking your brain and talking nostalgia and music and movies, I mean, that's my bread and butter, man.
Yep.
All right. Sounds good. Well, Mike, thanks for joining me, and we'll see you at Michelson Park this evening.
Yep. Thanks, Rob.
You betcha. Mike Schulte here on the Morning Roundup 95.1 The Bull. Pork Tornadoes, check them out tonight, New Hampton Heartland Days. Our community conversation brought to you by Floyd County Medical Center on 95.1 The Bull.